Hello everybody, my name is Ryan John Murphy and welcome to Microsoft Purview Days 2023, sponsored and supported by Microsoft, Penthread Technologies, Rapid Circle and Sysisto 365. Okay, this is a one-day virtual event and there's some great prizes up for grabs. We have a Lenovo Tab, an Echo Show, a Boat Blaze smartwatch, and one thing I'm certainly going to take advantage of, we have up to 70% discount on Microsoft Press books and ebooks and video courses. Any techie is going to love that today. Okay, so we are supporting a cause here to empower girls with education. So do not donate today. We have a simple QR code here, so get it flashed up. If you've got a spare cents, pens, whatever the case may be, it's towards a great cause. So let's try and make that the target numbers that we can. So I'm number session 11, and it's an eDiscovery Premium Practical Approach. So a little bit about myself then. So as I say, I'm Ryan John Murphy. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I'm the compliance lead at Epic Global. Today I'm going to be walking you through the practical approach, but I'm going to bring some other elements of the M365 stack to actually increase your eDiscovery permissions and also your logging, monitoring, alerting as we go along. So here's a quick rundown of what we've got on today. We have roles-based access and permissions. We always want those users to have the least amount of privilege possible without hindering their job or without oversharing or over permissioning those people. Just-in-time access, using that to emphasize who can have access to what within eDiscovery and when. The last thing we want is giving people indefinite access to these powerful tools within M365. Then I'm going to walk through the eDiscovery 7 stages. So what are they? What do they mean for you? How to work through them, how to understand them and get the most out of them, of course. And then I'm going to touch very briefly on the end around advanced logging, monitoring, alerting with Microsoft Sentinel. So the default login and auditing that you get already from Microsoft is sufficient enough for most customers, but we have had customers that have wanted that little bit extra when it comes to the login, monitoring, alerting. And that could be simply show me who created a case and then close that case. It could actually be give me this information that I need based on an email. So build out that email template, get that information out there and get it out to your SOC. The current default auditing doesn't allow you to do that. It's an all or nothing approach. Okay, so let's take a look through the options I've got today. So when it comes to eDiscovery, Microsoft give you a default role. That role is the eDiscovery Manager role. Now, we don't advise that you use this role for the simple reason being is that any future permissions or any future roles that can control the way eDiscovery works or the searchability of eDiscovery are automatically added into there. That may lead to a breach in your environment. So the first thing we advise you to do is to come in here. Wait, it decides to load. And simply take a copy of this role, okay? This will allow you to take all of these permissions in here and put them into a default role of your organizations. Therefore, anything that's published into the original eDiscovery Manager role and not your organization role will collect those new items. That won't then lead to over permissioning with your new role for your organization. Additionally, what you can do is you can start to build out some compliance second line, first line, or some eDiscovery first line and second line roles for yourself. Within there, you can actually slim down the amount of permissions that you need for a specific roles. So let's take it the first line one. And as you can see in the first line one, it's just custodian and case management. So again, taking that proactive approach of understanding what users need what permissions to do what searches or what case-bound management within eDiscovery. We always advise to build out the least amount of privilege first, and secondary, move away from that Microsoft default role. Let's take a look in the eDiscovery portal and walk through the 7 stages. Okay, so let me just move myself down here. Okay, so this is eDiscovery Premium. Okay, so eDiscovery Premium itself is a custodian-bound eDiscovery solution from Microsoft. What that means is that with eDiscovery Standard, you basically have to go and build that case up based on the user's OneDrive URL or their mailbox or SharePoint sites and so on and so forth. With eDiscovery Premium, you simply just have to put the user's name in the search box at the top, and it goes and collects most of that data that's mapped back to that user. So at the front here, we've got the overview, and we have the cases or the number of cases that are registered to me or I have permissions to work on. And as you can see, we've got the last case that I was in, which was basically amended on the 19th of April. That shows you what you have access to, what you frequently have access to or have been into in a case management. So let's take a look through the cases themselves. Microsoft have given you this little favorite button here, which makes things so much easier for you if you're an eDiscovery manager of working out your favorite cases or just those cases that you work on a regular basis. Simply selecting the star will emphasize the star, and then it'll give you the ability to put that then right at the top of the list. If you have, like some of our customers have, hundreds of cases, the last thing you want to be doing is scrolling through them or trying to basically merge them by their name or the status or the created date. Okay, I'm going to take you through the 7 stages of eDiscovery now. Okay, so this is just a test case that I have had open for quite some time now, and I have quite a lot of data published into it. So at the top here, you'll see we have overview, data sources, collections, review sets, communications, hold, processing, exports, jobs, and settings. Now these here in the middle are the 7 stages of eDiscovery. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Jobs and settings are additional roles and features that Microsoft give you to understand what's happening with this particular eDiscovery case. On the overview page, we have the case format. Okay, so you can see if this has been brought out from a standard or a classic case and been mapped into an eDiscovery Premium case. You can see the custodians. So we have 3 custodians on hold at the moment, and then we have 3 custodians in the case, but 1 custodian on hold. Then we've got a communication summary. So we have 3 notices that have been sent and only 1 that have been acknowledged. Then we have the recent jobs. This is very informative. If you're running a lot of processes or collections, or you're doing a lot with this particular case, you can come in here and look at the last few items that you've done. This helps to give you an understanding if you're sharing this case between another eDiscovery manager in a different region, how you can come together and manage that case proactively. Then we have data sources. So data sources is simply just your custodians. Okay. Now, the 3 that I have in here, I'll just show you very briefly what happens when you click on them. Once you select them, we have Adele Vance here. We can understand their title, their status, and whether or not they're on hold. But also we have some additional information in here around who the user principal name of that user, who their manager is, their mailbox, their location, state, department, city, country. Then as we scroll down, we can see what custodial locations are actually mapped into this particular case. We can take the copy of the OneDrive URL should we wish to do so. If we need to do any proactive marking with that, we can bring that into a different case. Additionally, we can go through the additional custodial locations. So we can see that we've got 18 SharePoint sites in here, and we can happily take them, the URL from these themselves. We also have 13 Teams channels in here that we can go through, copy the URL if we need to, so on and so forth. Additionally, what we can do with a user is we can edit that user, which brings us to the original data source collection point. We can essentially go through, add or remove SharePoint sites if we feel the need to. The same for Teams channels. We can add those as well if we need to. We can clear the OneDrive if we're not interested in the user's OneDrive, just to speed up that process if we want to. We can add in Yammer. And we can also add in additional Exchange locations if that user has them mapped to them. Okay. So additionally, we have the ability to update the index. Now, if anybody's worked in an eDiscovery case, you'll know that some of these cases can take a long time to go through the system and be approved, reviewed, and so on and so forth. So if you're ever in a position where you've run a case, let's say on the 1st of February, okay, and then you come back to that case on the 15th of March, you obviously know that there's been a lot more data communicated with that user, or that user has created a lot more data. You can simply click on Update Index, and whatever you've put in, that criteria, will go off and bring that new data back for you. We also have the Release button. So the Release button essentially means I don't need this custodian in this search anymore. I simply click on that name, that object, and it releases them from the case, okay? And then we've got View Activity, which takes you through to the audit logs. So if you suspect there's been a misbehavior from that particular user, you can simply click on this and it would take you through to the audits, and it will bring up that user and any additional components that they've got within that logging, monitoring, alerting. Okay. If you want to add a new user in and you've got no custodians in at that point, you simply come up to Add Data Source. You click on Add New Custodians, or you can use the import. The import one allows you to download a CSV, add the custodians' names, UPNs into that CSV, and then import it into here. So if you have lots of custodians and you don't want to go through them manually with this particular tool here, Add New Custodians, you can simply just upload that CSV, bring them all in, and then work them on from that perspective. But for argument's sake today, I'm just going to add an actual custodian for us. I'm going to bring Christine in. Oh, actually, let's bring Lee in. Easier to find. Okay, so we've selected Lee. Now this is the view that we get as we saw with an existing custodian. All I need to do is click out the SharePoint sites that I need access to. And for argument's sake, I'm just going to pick this one. And the Teams channels I need to do a discovery on. And for argument's sake, I'm going to pick these two. And then simply click Next. Now, you come through to the hold settings. It's important to remember that the hold is on by default. Most cases that I've helped with do not need hold on initially, unless they're a VIP or a specific reason for having them in your environment on hold. Maybe they're an investment banker, maybe they have some regulatory alignment. So if you don't need hold on for most of your users, it is unfortunately on by default. You have to untick it. Then we simply click Next, and you get the opportunity then to review your settings. What I always say is, you know who the user is, what the user should be doing, what access they have is already brought back. So you can just simply pick the items that you want or the workloads that you want to search against. And then we simply click Submit. And as you can see, that's now gone through creating that particular custodian within this case. We select Done, and we take back, and here we can see that we have Lee now in that area. But you'll see it in this corner here, we have In Progress, okay? What that essentially means is that index job is now starting to populate items that are relevant to this case where Lee is concerned, okay? You'll also see in the jobs area, we've got a reindex of data sources. So that means I've brought somebody in. That means that it's now going through that process. What I will say is it's very important for you to always come into the jobs every time you've done something within this particular case that you may have to wait on. Collections and review sets are the biggest failures, where we see people running a collection and then immediately just jumping into the review set and not knowing that actually it takes quite a long time to do these. If you're ever in a position where you need to check the item, simply come here, click on this, and then you'll see that you get an In Progress. Some of them actually do show a bar going across the bottom here, but it depends on what action you've taken. Okay. So that's how you manage a custodian, and that's how you bring a custodian into a case. You can always do the same from here as well. You click on the ellipsis, we have update index, release, and view custodian activity. Now let's look at the collections. So here's a collection that I created some time ago. And as we can see, once you've already got a collection in place, you can simply come to that collection after it's ran and start to have a look at the actual review. As we can see here, we've got a review sample. We can click on this. And then what this will do is give you some items to look at. So is this what I'm expecting to receive back? Is this the information that I searched for? Okay. Additionally, we've got data sources. So we can see any of the data sources that we may have brought into this. We've got search statistics. So this is going to be a big one. If you're an eDiscovery manager, you're going to want to know how accurate is that search? What has it brought back for you? Is it bringing back what you're expecting it to bring back? And more importantly, estimated items by location, the data volume, and of course, where the condition report is. So you can see that the location type is exchange, and then the condition of what's been run against it, and I'll go into these conditions in just a little bit later, and then location with these hits. This condition report here is a massive advantage of what's been recently put into the collections. So if you're ever in a position of wanting to understand, okay, I did a lot of keyword query searches that are even if you're using the card builder, but what did I find? And where did it find it? And to what count? This is a great area to figure that out. Again, you've got top locations of the user versus the actual workload itself, and how many items and the data size for that user as well. An excellent addition from Microsoft. Before this came out, you was literally having to find ways to figure out what has been brought back and what has been matched per user, per workload, how many items, and what potential data size it is as well. That goes all the way through. Now, you have some additional options here. You can do a copy collection, or you can do download collection summary. So if you're in a position where you're doing a lot of repetitive tasks, when it comes to the collection that you have in a case, you can simply come to here, click on copy collection, and it will essentially take everything from that collection and build it into another one. So you can then go off and target that also. Let's take a look at how to create a collection. All right, so I'm going to call this KQL collection 2. All right, so we come through to the choose custodial data sources. Now, everyone that's in this case, I want to be in this collection. However, if you need to build out further collections to do deeper investigations as that case is open, you can simply come to select collections and click on a person or a bunch of people if needed. For this example today, because I've added Lee in after the fact, I'm going to run this against Lee specifically. I'm going to choose Lee, and I'm going to choose all of the workloads where I want this to be searched from. I don't need any to choose non-custodial data, so I'm going to skip this one. Okay, I don't need any additional locations, so I'm going to skip this one. And I'm going to come through straight to the KQL editor. Then I'm going to paste in my original query. But if you're not familiar with KQL, you can simply come up to the top here, and then it will show you how to build that out. So you can essentially build in another filter. That filter can be any of these particular items down here. So let's click type. Let's click type. Select an operator equals any of, and then you can put the value in here. Okay, so we can have documents as well and apply that too. The way I learned how to do KQL was building it out in the card builder first, and then simply switching over to the KQL. Within here, you'll be able to see any keyword query language of how you built out the previous card builder. This is a great way to learn how to use KQL. Okay, let's select next. So we're on the review side here now. So name, fine. I know what I put in there. My search criteria. I've used the custom query language, not custom query, keyword query language. Sorry, that's my mistake. And then the data sources, and we have the custodians. We know we've got Lee in here, okay? And we know we've got his OneDrive and the SharePoint and Teams channels that we've selected in. We haven't selected any other locations or any other additional locations. We simply click submit. Away that will go, new collection created, done. We then come over to jobs, okay? And then we'll be able to see that job now come into here as our progress. We have keyword query language collection 2. We click on this and we see that this is in progress. Now, I'm going to leave that there and I'm going to go back to my original collection because that's going to take some time to go. So let's take a look at how you create a review set once this comes through. So let's jump over to review sets. Okay, so I've created a review set when the collection has been brought back. All I've selected is commit collection, and then this takes me through this page here and then brings me up the actual review set. We can then see an overview of what this collection and review set have created. Okay, we have the overview, we have any load sets that you've got in there or created, any exports that we've executed, and any jobs or errors that we've gone and when we've started to build out this case. We click on review set. Now, the review set's going to be the main area that you spend most of your time on. This is where the data comes back, okay? So, what I mean by this is you're an eDiscovery investigator. This is the data that you've brought back by the collection. This is where you start the investigation, okay? So, as you can see here, I have some numerical values down the left-hand side. I have my subject, I have a status, and there's some items marked as green, and items marked as tagged, and also items marked as ready. We've got the date, which always shows in UTC. I have the sender and the author, and then I have the file class. These are all very important to remember. Additionally, we have the recipients, custodian, and then the ID. You can add more items in here if you wish to do so. You simply just need to come up to the top and add them in from the filters perspective. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the items I've already got. So we know that this item has been tagged here because I've used this tagging system here. To build out tagging, you simply need to come to the tag in here, select tag, let's move this across, and then create our edit tags, our reset tag assignment. To do so, you basically click on edit tags. You can add in any top level context here and then add in the actual selected item below that. So as you can see here, you get the option to add a multi-select tag. This is essentially what this tree of information is. Now in mine, I've got some examples I've taken from different customers in the past where we have legal reviewed, relevant, not relevant, needs further investigation. Now, these are just examples that I've taken, as I say, from previous customers, but you may want to build them out in a different manner or a different naming convention. Viewing those in the actual portal, I'll show you now. It's simply when you see an item, you simply just pick on the assigned tags that you need to be. This is one of the first things that investigators will do. They'll go through all of the documentation or all the information that they've been published back, and they'll start to filter out what is needed, what is not needed. So that's a good place to start. Additionally, we have the ability to look at items, as you can see here. We can see this is an email, and there's a modern attachment in there. We also get to see this in plain text also. So if you have a lot of graphics in there, whether it be in a document, you can come over and go to plain text. We also have the ability to annotate. So as you see here, I don't want people seeing those email addresses. However, if you're an eDiscovery manager and you need to see what's behind there, you simply toggle on the annotation transparency. You can then see what's behind the redaction in the background. So if there's any information that you need to redact before sending it on to a third party or having somebody else come through and view these items, you can redact it, but you can also turn it off by using the filtering here. Okay. We also have the metadata. So all of these items are searchable, and there's lots more in here that Microsoft give you the ability to search on. Let's just take a quick scroll through. Document URL, very important. I see that getting used quite a lot. Email subject, again, an obvious one you'd want to have. Family ID, so a construct of all of those families. If you pulled a message out from an email, there's two different items, but it creates a family ID, and if there's a document in there as well, it's all combined into the same family ID. Then we've got the file type, which is a message. Loads of information here. Is email attachment, is from PST, is a modern attachment. That's a good one from Microsoft. So as you will find now, with more and more people using SharePoint and OneDrive, you'll use a lot of modern attachments, and that simply just means that you have that link in the email and not the actual file itself, so you can see whether or not a modern attachment has been shared. Great addition. A lot of our customers use that. Okay, we've also got stuff like recipients that we can search against. Conversation ID. So just for our introductory pieces here, for every Teams conversation you create, it creates a conversation ID. So if I'm having a conversation with somebody and one person, that's one conversation ID. But if I bring somebody else into that conversation, that creates a different conversation ID. So it's always important to know when you're working with Teams with eDiscovery, what are my conversations? How do I build these out? How do I map them into these icons here? And how do I understand what the flow of that conversation has been and with who? And that's easily identifiable by the conversation ID. We have the sender and author, unique ones, but definitely ones that you would need to work on. Teams channel, again, another great one. If it's a specific channel that you need to have access to, you can use that within the metadata now for searching. The to field, of course, the title, and lots more. Very, very detailed information from Microsoft. You can also show pinned metadata. So this is quite new, but if there's anything in here that takes applications from you, you can come in here and use that. And of course, if you want to search through the metadata, you simply can. You can just come into here and type conversation or whatever it is that you're looking for. And it will automatically bring up anything that has that element in. Just think of the Windows searching on your Word document or something like that. That's all in there for you. So let's take a look at that conversation ID in action then. So as we can see here, we have the icons that are displaying what the application is in the background. So everybody knows the Teams icon. So if I come down to here now and I have a look through this, and I'll just close this for argument's sake, I can now see that I've got a 4, but I've also got a 4.1. And the same when it comes to 5. I have a 5 and a 5.1 and a 5.2. What that's telling you is there's additional items that have mapped back to the original Teams conversation. So if I click on this here and I go to source, I can see that Teams conversation in action. More importantly, I can see the attachment of which is brought back in here. So not only does it go and grab you those Teams chats and thread them, it also gives you the actual document or any assignment bound to that, whether it be a modern attachment or an actual attachment, which is really good. It saves you a lot of time. So Microsoft have put a lot of effort in to ensure that when you're doing the discoveries, everything is sped up for you when it comes to the conversation ID or the family ID. And they're literally mapped together in this tree line approach here. Let's take a look at the next one along. So we've got here, we've got one attachment, and then we've also got a second attachment. And then we can see in here the first attachment, and of course, the second attachment. So Microsoft make it really easy for you, and that's a massive bonus for any eDiscovery manager working through those particular items and trying to understand what's in with that family ID or conversation ID. You also get at the bottom here the document family. If you were to select that, that brings up any of the items that are mapped into that particular document family. as we see here. So you can simply open that on a new page and have that for your own vision without all of the noise in the background. The same goes for the conversation. We can simply click on the conversation and have all of those conversations relating to the ID. Again, another massive advantage with eDiscovery Premium, that you can simply do a one-time search and bring back any threaded conversations or any threaded attachments that are bound to that conversation ID mapped into the family ID. Okay. And again, the same goes for these items here when you're looking into documents. So we have the plain text and we have the annotate. If there's anything in here in that document that you need to annotate, you simply come in here and then you go to the annotation piece itself. So let's just take a look at that. Area of redaction. We click on area redaction. We highlight what we want to redact and we simply let go of the mouse. But again, as a reminder, if we want to have visibility into that, we can just toggle that on and off wherever we see that redaction. It works on documents, it works on chats, and it also works in emails. Let's take a look at the filtering when it comes to the information that we have here. Okay, so there's lots of filtering that you can do. And Microsoft have broke this down into particular segments. So from a search perspective, you can search against keywords, or you can simply enable to search against keyword query language. So if you've originally built up your collection based on keyword query languages, you can now do the same in the search within the review set. So you can simply go kind equals IM, Teams, whatever the case may be, inside of the review set. We then have analytics and predictive coding. So we have the ability to toggle on attorney-client privilege score, dominant theme, inclusive type, marked as pivot, marked as representative, ND store, Excel attached, pivot ID, potentially privileged, and then themes list. If you're looking more from an analytics perspective to understand what your case has brought back, or your collection, should I say, has brought back, this is a great place to start. And starting to enable these and starting to understand more about how you can pull those analytics through, or even the predictive coding. Now, the predictive decoding does have a minimum number of items that it will trigger on, so make sure you meet that. And I think it's still 2,000 items within the review set. These are all good places to come to start to fine tune or refine that data set. We also have IDs. So again, as I'm referring to, you can do the filtering by conversation ID. So you can simply select it and it brings that ability to bring those conversation IDs back. Email set, family ID, file ID even. So if you're working off a file ID that goes through many versions, you can simply come here and start to look at those file IDs themselves. Group ID, immutable ID, load ID, and representative ID. And for the big one, we've got the item properties. So you can simply come through here and start to filter all of this data that you have on the left-hand side here based on these item properties here. The ones that I see used the most are either down to email sensitivity, file class, has an attachment, is a modern attachment, item class, sender, subject, subject title, tags, and then Teams channels themselves. So you can simply come in here and start to look at those and start to understand or start to refine that data set that you have based on the information put in it. Let me just show you very quickly. So I've added in is a modern attachment. I simply just need to come in here and enable the true, click off the banner, and it will then go through and start to find all the modern attachment that I have in this particular case. And as I say, use this filtering to your advantage. There are lots of item properties in here that you can basically come in and select and start to refine that data down. The last thing you want to be doing is going through reams and reams of data. And as you can see here, I'm only viewing page 1 of 2 when I have 50 items in each of the pages. There's a lot of investigative time that you can put into this, which is completely wasted, where you can come into the item properties and simply just narrow down that search for your own ease. Okay, let's switch this off and let's go back to the main screen. Great. So let's tag an item to understand how to tag an item. And as I say, you simply come to here, you click on needs further investigation or any of the items that you created, press apply tag, and you'll see in the background it's applying the changes. You automatically see then the green tag here to understand, okay, I tagged this for a specific reason and this is why, and you can see that in here also. You also get the ability to click on tags here and then start to filter based on those tags. So if I now come down to legal needs further refinement and then click off, it will start to give me those items of which I've marked out, okay? It also includes the sub items as well. As you can see, I have 4 items that have been brought back specifically because I've added a tag at the top layer and then it's therefore added it to the 2 sub layers as well. So it always keeps that consistency when you're running through the filtering, whether it be based on the metadata or any of the filters based on the construction of the case, but also from a tagging perspective also. Okay, so let's remove that filtering off. All right, so we're back to the main screen then. Additionally, what you have within the eDiscovery portal is an overview, analytics, and actions. Let's take a quick look at those actions. Now, we have export and we have download items. We also have commit redactions to PDF. As you just saw, when I enabled the PDF, when I enabled the redaction, you have to commit that to a PDF for it to be exported with the redaction on. If you simply redact the item and don't commit it, it will be exported without the redaction on. Very important. A lot of people get caught out with that. So just ensure that you have the redactions committed before you do the export. Add to another review set. So we've just gone through all of the filtering to refine that data and fine tune the data that we've got in accordance with the investigation. Now, I want then to put that into another review set so it's a clean review set. I can simply do that by clicking the items and then going to add to another review set. That makes it so much easier for you to have a shortened version of what you've originally collected, making it easier for you to go through the data and understand the data a little bit more. Additionally, you have the ability in these particular items here to go through and select group by family attachment, group by family teams and conversations. So if you're getting too much when it comes to the grouping, you can always come in here and select no if you want to go through them independently. I wouldn't advise you do that because that's going to basically emphasize all of the information that you've got. We also have the tag files up here where you can come through and start to create an additional tag should you wish to do so. We also have manage. So managing the load sets. So if you're building out load sets, here is where you can come in to load them in or actually manage those. You have the tagging here again. You have non-Office 365 data. So Microsoft gives you the ability to bring data connectors in. That therefore means that you can bring data in from third-party products if they have a data connector. Slack, WhatsApp, Telegram, some investment banking applications, they are supported. What they do is they basically allow you to plug in to those applications with the connector and bring that data into 365 and then reason over that data with eDiscovery. So you can continuously have a high visibility of that user's particular data in 365 and also from an M365 perspective. Search profile view. If you want to just go through and search for the by the profile, here is where you come to do that. Turn pagination off. Essentially what you do by turning this off is you remove this at the bottom here. If you don't want this and you want the extra space, you can simply click it and it goes away. Just remove this filter again. Okay, great. You also have the ability to edit the columns that you have across the top here. So if it's too noisy or you don't feel like you're getting what you want from it, you can simply come in here and add them in. So I'm going to add in family ID. I'm going to add in one more, which is message kind. In fact, let's add conversation ID in as well. We simply close down the box here, and then we can go across, and then we can see what we've got in here. So we can start to understand the message kind to help us build out those keyword query language searches. We've also got the conversation ID here for us to understand what conversation does that map back to, what family ID is that map back to. Okay, great. Now, let's just go back to the Sentinel, okay? Communications. So there are regions and there are departments within businesses that state you have to send out a communication when a user has been brought into an investigation or they've been put on hold. Okay, here is where you come to do that. You can simply come through and take a look at what you want to build out. So this is where you're basically defining out what you want that content to be and the reasoning for being on hold or within an investigation. You set up the issuance as you need it, to whom it needs to go to, the reissuance, and then the release. Additionally, you've got reminders. So if the user doesn't acknowledge that first and foremost, you can come in here and set up reminders. You can also set up an escalation point. So who does this need to go from an escalation perspective, because you're getting nothing back from the user, or the custodian, should I say. And then we can map in the custodians who need that communication. As we know, Lee's not been put onto here, so I'm now going to add Lee in. I'm going to select next. I'm going to review all of my settings and understand it's exactly as I need it to be, and I'm going to kick that off. In the background, we're going to go to jobs, and we're going to see in just a second that kick that process off. Okay? Holds. We can come into holds and manage hold from in here. We simply just need to come on here and we need to go through and understand what is on that hold. We can also do query-based holds via this method. So it doesn't have to be all the content in the mailbox or the SharePoint side. We can simply come in here and say, I want to keep elements within that user's mailbox, OneDrive, based on this type of query. You simply add in the query here, or you use the custom card builder by selecting the items you want to do. That's called query-based hold. This is where you would need to come to. All right, great. Processing, a big one. As you can see here, there's files protected in my environment, okay? If there's ever a reasoning why a piece of data that's come back hasn't been fully indexed, you can come in here and start to understand why, okay? We've got requires remediation. We've also got errors by file type. File is protected. That could be the fact that it's in a WinRAR file, it's a PDF, it has a password on it. So if you're getting information back in here, always come here to try and understand, okay, I've got what I need back, but let me just go to the processing and understand what's in there. All you simply need to do is come to the update index and update it in the background. Microsoft do have limitations on how much, like an Excel spreadsheet, can be indexed before you need to do a full reindex of it. Here is where you would come to do that. And then we've got exports. So when creating an export, you can simply come through and suggest which way you want that export to happen. Now, we would always advise Epic, and I'm sure Microsoft would advise the same. Always try to publish to a Azure blob storage and not have this data local to the investigator's machine. If I click download now, it's simply going to download to my machine. That is not what you want in most cases. And then we've got settings, okay? Understanding the settings of this case. Under the case information, we have the case name. We have the case number, the description, and the status. If we need to make changes to this case, we simply come down to actions, close case, or delete case. Okay? Press exit, access, and permissions. If we need to add additional permissions in here, or add compliance boundaries in here, we basically come in and manage roles. We're not a big fan of adding members in directly. It's better that they're part of an RBAC group as we described before, so you don't have that consistency of a user being indefinitely added to an actual case itself. We also have the search and analytics, so we've got near duplicates, themes, including number of themes, adjust, automatically create, minimum number of words and maximum number of words. This is a big one. If you have a document that has 2 or 3 words in, it's not going to be brought back. If you feel that somebody just pasted over like some secret information and it's less than 10 words, or it could have been less than 10 words, reduce this down. Additionally, you've got the ability to ignore text. So if you're getting stuff back that's frequent to what you're looking for, but not an accurate match of what you're looking for, you can simply come in here and remove it out, and then select the module of where you want that to be applied to. OCR, always a big question. So there's going to be times where people publish data into a JPEG file or a GIF file or a PNG file or whatever the case may be. By default, this is on low, I beg your pardon. I've swapped this to high because I want to always ensure that any image is brought back has been reasoned over in the appropriate manner. Okay, so that's eDiscovery Premium as a collection through the 7 stages. Let's take a quick look at what Sentinel brings back from an auditing and logging perspective. So I'm just conscious of time here, so I'm going to make this quite brief. But this may be familiar to anybody that has been working with Sentinel or been working with the audit logs from a default perspective. But what you can get here with Sentinel, the added benefit is that some of these action types, as we see here, actually give you a little bit more information than they do in the actual default audit logins. More to the point, you can trigger an email based on an alert. So if we say, for example, someone's created a case and had custodians in, and you want to know that straight away, you can trigger that in alert, and that can be sent on to the relevant people. If you're using people within a watch list in Sentinel that are your eDiscovery managers, and somebody else has been added into a eDiscovery case, you can proactively come in here and use the SOAR piece of Sentinel to remove that user out of that case. Additionally, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, if you're ever in a position where you need to know where a case has been created, a collection has been run, and then that case has been closed, you can simply do that by using a simple KQL query in Sentinel to trigger that as an alert, which then additionally triggers it as an email. And as you can see here, there's so much information. We get view document, view conversation, annotate document, all the way through to query created. And it will actually show you what that query is. If you basically just click on here and start to deep dive in the actual report itself, it shows you the actual context of the query. You've got custodian created here, so you can understand what custodians have been mapped into that particular item. Anybody that's viewed a conversation or viewed a document, where export has been viewed, and so on and so forth. All the way through to running an algorithm on an analytics or tagging files, whether they're being onto an item or a conversation or whatever the case may be. So that's been eDiscovery as a practical approach. And I've been Ryan John Murphy, and thank you very much for joining me today. We have lots of great sessions coming up after myself. Thank you. Goodbye.